Welcome to Cine-dreamzzz. Today we're going to review a new film that's in the cinema, Alien Romulus, which is a new film from Uruguayan director Fede Alvarez. This will have a few spoilers, so if you haven't seen the film yet, then don't watch this video. Watch this video after you've seen the film. Where do I start with this film? I'm just going to jump straight in. I've got a few notes here, so that's why I'm going to be looking down at this laptop. Just to refer to the notes I made after I went to cinema last night to watch it. The good things about Romulus, there were good things about the film, things I really enjoyed. And I'll start off with them and then I'll move into the bad things, which I'm not happy to say there's quite a lot of bad things about Romulus. The film starts off really strong. There's a really strong sense of a time and a place. So we start off on the colony. A Weyland-Yutani colony. You know, Weyland-Yutani in the world of Alien Romulus, they are the big corporation, they control everything. And that's where all of our characters start off. And Rain, who was our main character, and her brother type character, who's called Andy, who's actually a synthetic, he's an android. We start off with them too, and then they meet up with a crew who are led by a character called Tyler, who has picked up a signal from a ship, a derelict ship that's orbiting above the planet. They want to go and retrieve something from the ship which will give them the opportunity to go to another planet, which will be, it's much better than the colony planet. And I think there's pods on this craft that will enable them to go into hypersleep. So that's the idea. So that's the motivation for them to go to the ship. At this point, the film's good. It's effective. You know, we know why the characters are going to this place. I got a bit confused at this point because I didn't really understand why a ship that is clearly very valuable, a ship that has a lot of valuable things aboard, would just be left and there'd be no one guarding this. There'd be no Weyland-Yutani security forces which are hovering around this craft. This craft is just there, and it's there for anyone to take, which I thought was a little bit, it didn't really make sense to me, but I went along with it anyway. So we progress to the point where they get onto the ship. Things are effective. You know, it's working well. You know, we haven't seen anything yet, nothing's happened. So when they get aboard the ship, they find what they're looking for. They find these pods, these hypersleep pods. But they realise that they don't have enough fuel for the pods to last the journey that they need to go to this other planet. So they have to look somewhere on the station and find the fuel for these pods, and that takes them into this cryo room, which is where the main plot starts. That's when things start going wrong. But it's also where things start going wrong for the film as well. It starts off strong. There's great visuals, you know, the music's good. A really strong sense of time and a place. There's nods to the originals in terms of visual effects. You know, there's the retro futurism on the ships. You know, everything feels murky and dirty. You know, it is a real throwback to the technology of the original film. For about half an hour, it was really good, and I was thinking, oh, that this is going to be the one Alien film that gets it. You know, the cinematography was beautiful, especially you see the rubble around the planet, you know, the ring. You know, it was beautiful. Like the space station that they get on is gorgeous, and it's clearly very inspired by Alien Isolation, which is a fantastic video game. And I think Fede Alvarez is obviously inspired by Isolation, which is completely understandable, because I'd say it's probably like one bit of media that gets it and understands. It understands the world of Alien and what makes Alien work. There's really good moments of suspense in Alien Romulus, you know, especially the chest burster sequence. I thought that was really good, and I was quite tense during that scene, and I felt the way I felt it when I was watching the originals. And there's like this X-ray device that the character has, and it's an original thing because we haven't seen it, but she X-rays herself and we can see the chest burster about to come out. And that was really good. It hadn't been done before. Not that I know of anyway, and that was effective. It was really good. So Romulus is really good when it's it's making new ideas like that, and it's, you know, it's got an original feel. However, there's many bad things with this film, which I'm gutted to say, because I wanted to enjoy this film, honestly. Like, I really wanted this to be the one. The characters in this film are just really poor. We don't really empathise with them as much as we could have if they had been developed better. Tyler he's the head of the ship that they use. He's almost like the Dallas type character, but he's nowhere near as good as Dallas. He recruits Rain, but really he wants Andy, he's like a brother type character to Rain. Really, he wants Andy because Andy is a synthetic and he can get access to the ship. So really his motivation is to get Andy, to get them on board the ship, to get what they need. He just seems to be there to suit the plot. There's a moment when Tyler starts saying, you know, is that all you've got, motherfucker, to the Xenomorph, and he's like fighting the Xenomorph. And I knew straight away, I was thinking, this reminds me of number 3, when Dylan is fighting the alien, but Dylan's a badass, and we completely understand why Dylan's doing that. It just felt like a rehash of number 3. There's a character called Bjorn he's angry towards Andy for being an android. He doesn't like Andy because Andy's an android, and we're given a little bit of dialogue which is supposed to explain why Bjorn has such a problem with androids, but you know, it's just a piece of dialogue. Like, we need more than that, you know. There's just not enough development. Then we have a character who's pregnant, and we learn that she's pregnant, and then I realised that she was just there to serve the plot. She was just there to serve the ending, which is absolutely, the ending is just crazy, and I'll go into that. Then there's the pilot of the ship, and she just seems to be there again to serve the plot. She doesn't really do anything in particular that stands out, you know what I mean? She's not really an effective character. She's just there. There's minimal backstories to these characters, you know, and when things are progressing, that becomes very apparent, you know, because when the characters are under threat, that's the point when you need to have built the characters up, and that's what the original films did. Like, they had really good characters, so when things are happening in the plot, we care about them and we care about what's going on and we're invested, and that's where the suspense comes from. And it's something that Romulus gets wrong with the characters. Rain's a decent character, but she feels like a rehash of Ripley from 1, 2 and 3. It just feels like she's the same character. She doesn't feel like original enough, and her behaviours just imitate what Ripley did in 1, 2 and 3. Especially towards the end, when she goes back to rescue Andy, who's in the alien nest, and it was just like Ripley going back to get Newt. It was the same thing, and it takes place in an elevator that's going up to the surface. You know, it was just the same thing. It was the same plot. So for me, it was just annoying, because if something's so similar to the originals but not as good, then immediately you think, all right, well, the original's better. And that's what I kept thinking during Romulus. It was too close to the originals without being, you know, original itself. And there were moments when it was original, but it just, you know, they were just too few and far between. My biggest problem with Alien Romulus is how the Xenomorphs are treated in this film. I honestly thought Romulus was going to be... I thought it was going to be the one that gets the Xenomorphs right. It doesn't feel like... I think since... maybe even since Alien 3, it doesn't feel like the Xenomorphs have been done justice. That's what makes Alien really effective, is not being able to see it. And for a little bit, Romulus does this. But like in Alien Covenant, they're treated really as an afterthought. You know, there's not enough suspense or mystery when we finally see it. You know, the Xenomorph is the iconic image of this franchise. Like, when I think of the Alien franchise, that's what I think of. I think of a terrifying, otherworldly creature that we were introduced to in the first film. And again, Romulus just doesn't get it. It doesn't... There's one scene when the pregnant lady she's being stalked by the Xenomorph, and it's the first time we've seen it fully fledged and fully grown. And it's really good. For like 5 minutes, it's really good. And I was thinking, like, this is it. but then they just forget the sensibilities of it and then go down a different route, because dozens of other xenomorphs arrive. When we're in the nest, we realise there's loads of xenomorphs, and immediately the threat is just gone. It makes the idea of the xenomorph being scary, it just makes it redundant because there's loads of them now. So that kind of lone stalking element of it is gone. And I was really gutted when that happened, because I realised, I was thinking, alright, like for a second Romulus got it, but now it's lost it again. And this is compounded when there's a sequence when Rain just massacres dozens of the xenomorphs with the pulse rifle. So it just completely, like, the suspense was gone, and you know, again, the aliens become cannon fodder. Like the characters are cannon fodder, and then the aliens become cannon fodder. So it's just like things are just being wiped out, and we don't care. I was gutted when this happened, because for me it was the realization that another filmmaker he just didn't get why the aliens are the icons of this franchise. He didn't get it, and he didn't treat this film as such. For some reason, the facehuggers are easy to swat away now. You know, that sequence in the cryo chamber when there's dozens of them on the floor. This character has a stun baton and he's just hitting them away. You know, he's reacting faster than them, which I was thinking, you know, when's that ever happened? And again, it just kills the threat. The threat's gone, because we know, okay, if you're stuck in a room with 15 of these and you can get away, then, you know, they're not dangerous. The ending of this film is just like, for me, I thought, this is Ridley Scott again, and he's tampering with this, because I know that Fede Alvarez and his co-writer, they had meetings with Ridley Scott, or they spoke to Ridley Scott. I am convinced that Ridley Scott has got in his ear, and he's got him to include this the plot of Prometheus and Covenant, you know, with how the aliens are engineered, you know, the black goo being like the ultimate weapon, and like the bio engineering of this black goo, and what this black goo does, and how it can create these new monsters. I wanted to get away from all that. I thought that Romulus was going to be the one film that just took things back to basics, but then in the end scene, it was just like, it brings it all back. And I was just thinking, like, why does this film have to be the same? Why does it have to do the same thing? Why do we have to retread the same ground? I was just thinking, like, Ridley Scott just needs to get away from this now. He just needs to let other people roll with this. And honestly, the ending really felt like he had his hands all over it. He's trying to tie it to Covenant and Prometheus, and it doesn't work. I don't want that anymore. I don't want Alien to be going down that route anymore. You know, he's already explored those ideas, you know what I mean? It didn't work in Covenant, so just leave it. But again, we have to go through it again. It feels unfair to compare to the original, because the original's a masterpiece. You know, I consider 1, 2 and 3 phenomenal films. You know, I think they're the best by far. I think 3 is really misunderstood. And to be honest, this film makes references to number 3 as well. So I think Fede Alvarez understands how good 3 is as well. But when you look at what makes Alien work, especially the original, it's the isolation of the characters. It's the hopelessness of the situation that they find themselves in. And they're just not equipped to deal with the situation. Like, it's completely over their head. Essentially, they are just, this is a bit of a overused phrase, but they're just truckers in space. They're just hauling cargo that they've got, and then they uncover something that they do not know how to deal with. They've never experienced anything like it, but they are fleshed out characters. They're stalked and hunted down by something that's absolutely terrifying. You know, it's a terrifying creature that hides and lurks in the shadows, and that's what Alien is built on. For me, that is the essence of Alien. It's characters being hunted down one by one. And I thought Romulus was going to do that, you know, and for a second it felt like it was, but then it just goes down this nostalgia trip, and doesn't even do that well. I think the sequence in which the pregnant lady, she's stalked and hunted by the alien that's now fully grown, that was the moment where I was thinking, okay, it got it for a second. Romulus got it for a second, but then it loses it. We needed more of that. So for me, Romulus had its moments, but ultimately it just feels like it's another opportunity that's being lost, which I'm not happy to admit.